Hello and welcome to that Bible Guy. Today, what I want to look at is what may be the only true solution to conflict. Now, it's probably reasonably obvious what I want to talk about today, and I don't want to delve into politics too much, but I'm obviously referring to the Israeli Palestinian conflict at the moment, which no doubt some of us see in the television, and it's pretty dire. The UN has just called it a dire situation in Gaza. And no doubt many of us may have got caught up and been watching some of the discussions going back and forward, and some fear in there, and hopefully we're all praying for the people on both sides. And after the attacks that started on Saturday night by Hamas. And it is pretty perplexing. You can watch a lot of the news, and I wouldn't advise doing it too much, especially if it makes you anxious. But if you are watching these discussions unfold, sometimes it can be pretty perplexing what you're listening to and trying to figure out what's the problem here? Who's at fault? What's the solution? How do you solve something like this? And a lot of conflicts and wars, as we know, can be like that. And you hear all the arguments on both sides. And I think one of the reasons I say this today is that the arguments are so conflicting on both sides. Like, there are so vastly different positions on in this particular conflict, Israeli-Palestinian conflict. It's very hard to figure out how do you navigate this. And one of the things, there was a chat show in Northern Ireland the other night where over here we have our alliances. With usually the Catholic, Protestant, Loyalist, Nationalist, Republican divide, you have your alliances. Usually one side goes with the other side and so on and so forth. And on a chat show last night, I heard them arguing their positions. And one of the things that you notice when obviously if someone pro-Israeli position, pro-Palestinian position, one of the things you notice is that started to sit very uncomfortably with me is that to argue one side or the other, you're having to underplay the atrocities committed by that side. So for the person arguing the Palestinian side, to them it was they're underplaying about Hamas. Someone had put a tweet up saying, Palestinian freedom on the night of the attacks, and you're like, and the whole way through the discussion, there was very little said by this person about what Hamas had done. And it was almost like trying to say the media was exaggerating in this story or that story, rather than having a conviction about what they'd done was wrong. And I'm not getting into the background behind why they felt the need to do it, which is usually what also then happens. And then on the other side, you have someone arguing the Israeli position, saying, well, all the things they've done in Gaza over the years and all the things they've done in the past and Palestinians that were killed and what they're doing now in Gaza, well, it's all because of so another side has done this and that's why they're doing that. And then they're underplaying any innocent lives that are being lost on because of Israeli aggression. And you're like, what on earth do you do? But that's one of the things I notice is when you're arguing one side or the other, you're having to underplay the atrocities committed by the side you're representing. And what it reminded me of was past conflicts in Northern Ireland. During the Troubles in Northern Ireland when I was young, and it was Catholic, Protestant, Loyalist, Republican violence. One side fighting for United Ireland, one side fighting to stay loyal to the United Kingdom. And I remember it back then as well. I remember thinking we've got our position, we're arguing and fighting because there's so much injustice done to us. But then whenever our side did something bad on the other side, we kind of explained it away. And I remember being perplexed by this when I was a young man. I thought, this is inconsistent. And that's the question I'm presenting today. And I think there is a solution, the only true solution to conflict. The question I'm presenting today is, how can we be morally consistent in every situation? Because as soon as we start taking sides, there becomes this moral inconsistency that I experienced when I was young during the Troubles in Northern Ireland. I would argue in favour for my side versus another side and argue away the things that they done and the reasons for them versus the other side. And I realised if I was born on the other side, I would be different here. And I thought, how can we be morally consistent when we're faced with conflicts with this? How can we be more consistent? I think spiritual people will ask this question because we want to be consistent. We don't want to be glossing over atrocities committed on the side that we support just because of harm that's been done and so on. But it got me thinking about, what is the solution? How do you solve something like Israel and the Palestinian conflict? How do you solve any conflict like the conflict in Northern Ireland? Conflict in our own personal lives, in our families. How on earth do you solve this? And I thought, you know what? The answer is there. I believe Jesus has already given us the answer to how we deal with conflict. Now, hear me out here if you feel like this is going to bypass the issues. We'll get there in a second. But I believe Jesus gave us the answers of what we can do, the ultimate solution to deal with conflict. Matthew 5, verse 43, you may have thought I would have went here. You've heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. That's certainly what's happening, that I hear on every media show I hear right now. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Bear with me on this, by the way. That you may be sons of your Father in heaven. He causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. If you love those who love you, what reward will you get? Are not even tax collectors doing that? And if you greet only your brothers, what are you doing more than others? Do not even pagans do that. Be perfect, therefore, as your heavenly Father is perfect. Jesus does something here that no other religious leader has ever done. He set the bar as high as it can go in terms of moral perfection. And he's made the claim to doing that because that's you acting just like the way God does. He sends his rain on the people who support him and those that don't. He goes after those that love him and those that don't. God doesn't differentiate. He loves his enemies. We should love our enemies. And that is, for me, the ultimate solution to any conflict, is that we're ready to forgive and love those who have perpetrated crimes against us. Now, a few disclaimers. The first one is, this is very, very difficult. It does not come naturally, and it goes against all our intuitions. It seems completely against what we should do. The second thing I'd say is another disclaimer, and this is a very important point I want to make here. Even though I believe this is the solution, I ultimately believe it is the solution, and I have seen some evidences of it. At a governmental level, so Israeli position right now, at a governmental position like the Israeli position right now, I understand that to govern your people, you need to protect your people. From a governmental level, you need to protect your people. And hence why I believe that some sort of action would have been required by Israel after it was infiltrated by Hamas. Something was required. Now, what that is a very complicated thing. So as a family, as a man, I protect my family coming in to attack them. So on a governmental level, I understand that something would need to be done. If an enemy was coming against you, something must be done. But, and this is what brought me back to my days in Northern Ireland, can I then inflict the same atrocities on other people and say, well, it's okay for me to do it because it was done on me? And I'm like, no, that makes me morally inconsistent. How can I claim that something is wrong if I'm willing to then do that on someone else? And that's where I realized there has to be, and I'm not saying it's easy to decide from the Israeli government's point of view, what do we do now without inflicting the same damage on other people that's been done on you? It's not an easy conundrum, but ultimately that's where I was left in Northern Ireland during the Troubles. I realized I cannot inflict this pain on someone, and my justification for it is because it was done on me. There's a moral inconsistency that I am not comfortable standing by there. And that's why it took me to the words of Jesus. I must find a way to protect, but also forgive. So forgive and protect. Be willing to forgive, not do wrong on someone just because it was done on you, but you've got to protect. I understand the desire and need to protect, and believe me, I would do that with those around me. I would protect them. But I don't want to inflict the same pain on others that was inflicted on me just because it was done on me, and that's where the inconsistency lies. So I just want to say today, for me, this is not easy, very difficult. I'm praying for the situation in Gaza, the situation in Israel. I really am, and for the wider, Lebanon and the wider potential conflict. I'm praying for these situations, but I really, really resonated with me so strongly when I heard so many debates this week, people jostling into their position, the Israeli side, Palestinian side. Over in Northern Ireland, people have all taken their positions, and I realized I want to be able to be morally consistent here. And what is the ultimate solution? It sounds simplistic, and it's very difficult, in fact, and I know this would require some discussion and conversations and a lot of working out, but the ultimate solution to the conflict in this current situation and in all conflicts is the words of Jesus. I need to be able to protect, of course, but I need to be able to love my enemies and not inflict on them what was inflicted on me just because it was inflicted on me. I know this could generate some dialogue. Please be respectful and understand what words I'm trying to use today. But if you helped you in any way, if you like this, please share it on for please hit the like button. Please share it on for other people. Please subscribe to That Bible Guy, and let's get his word out there.